Do you really think this person, are you qualified to take care of an American child? The question cut the air of the mansion like a blade, loaded with so much poison that even the plants of the living room seemed to wither. Isabella Santos, 28, remained immovable, holding the crystal tray she had just cleaned, pretending not to hear the poisonous comment of Sophia Wellington, the first candidate for stepmother who had arrived that Monday morning. The other four women laughed discreetly, like hyenas surrounding a wound prey. Little 8-year-old Michael Thompson watched everything from the top of the marble ladder, his blue eyes shining with an intelligence that no one in the room suspected existed. There was something in Isabella's posture that intrigued him. Even under attack, she kept a almost real serenity, like someone who kept two powerful secrets to be revealed ahead of time. Isabella has been working here for 6 months and Michael has never been so happy, replied Richard Thompson, the technology billionaire, adjusting the Patek Philippe clock on his wrist, while watching the scene with growing irritation. Happiness is not enough for an elite child, replied Madison Clark, the second candidate, becoming her Hermes bag with calculated disdain. Michael needs sophisticated guidance, appropriate social connections, preparation for the business world. Isabella looked down, but Michael noticed something that women have completely lost, a flash of determination that crossed their face like a silent lightning. She was not being humiliated, she was collecting information. Dad, Michael descended the stairs with the confidence of those who have already made a decision. Can I show the ladies what Bella taught me yesterday? Of course, son. Michael ran to Isabella and whispered something in her ear. She smiled for the first time since the candidates arrived, a smile that carried two deep mysteries for that moment. He learned to speak basic Tagal, said Isabella softly, his voice carrying an accent that women considered inferior, but that Michael found the most beautiful thing in the world. Salamat Bella Mahal Kita, said Michael in perfect Tagal, hugging Isabella with genuine affection. The silence that followed was deafening. The 5 candidates exchanged in disguised panic. A Philippine cleaning lady was creating real emotional bonds with the child they saw only as an obstacle to Richard's fortune. This is absolutely inappropriate, Victoria Ashford exploded, the third candidate. An American child should not be learning these languages. Charlotte Rivers, the fourth woman, shook her head with theatrical disapproval. This is exactly what happens when you allow employees to exceed your limits. The child is confused about social hierarchies. The fifth candidate, Vivian Cross, a social label consultant with millionaire clients, crossed his arms with authority. In all houses where I worked, domestic employees maintain children's professional distance. This situation is completely out of standard. Richard felt growing discomfort when observing how the 5 women talked about Isabella as if she were invisible. In 6 months working at his home, Isabella had never demonstrated any inadequate behavior. On the contrary, Michael had flourished under her care after months of sadness for the loss of her mother. Ladies, we may be a bit hard, tried Richard, but Sophia Wellington interrupted him with an impatient gesture. Richard, honey, you need to understand that a child in your social position cannot develop inappropriate emotional bonds. Michael needs to learn the difference between family and staff. Isabella finally raised her eyes, and for a second, Richard saw something in that look that made him question everything he thought he knew about the discreet woman who took care of his son so much with love. It was not vulnerability, it was the opposite of that. Michael, she said calmly, go play in the garden. Adults need to talk. But Bella, I don't want to leave you alone with them, Michael whispered, showing an impressive emotional perception for your age. It's okay, Mahalko. Go play, Isabella responded with a softness that dramatically contrasted with tension in the air. As the boy left reluctantly, Isabella turned to the 5 women with a tranquility that made Richard's heart accelerate. There were storms forming behind those brown eyes, and he had the strange feeling that he was about to witness something extraordinary. Madison Clark decided to break the uncomfortable silence. Well, now that the child has left, we can speak clearly. Isabella, you need to understand that your presence here is Poria. One of us will become the new Lady Thompson, and when that happens, changes will be needed. What kind of changes? Isabella asked, her voice keeping the same calm tone. Employees who do not respect professional limits simply do not work in high society families, said Vivian Cross with calculated cruelty. Richard observed Isabella carefully. I expected to see tears, anger, or at least some sign of intimidation. Instead, she only nodded slowly, as if mentally writing down every word. If this story of prejudice and overcoming has already touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because what these privileged women did not know was that every word of contempt was being carefully noted by someone who knew the true value of justice, and who kept a surprise that would turn that humiliation into the greatest mistake they would never make. What happened in the next 72 hours would turn that mansion into a silent battlefield, where each word was a weapon and each look a statement of war. On Tuesday morning, Isabella arrived at work to find a ticket stuck to her closet. People like you should know your place. Don't get used to this house. There was no signature, but the roll that is bordered with gold monogram delivered the author. Sophia Wellington was not just trying to intimidate, she was building a systematic case for Isabella's resignation. During lunch, Richard found the 5 candidates gathered in his office, folders organized on the table as lawyers preparing a trial. "Richard, we need to talk about the situation of his employee," started Madison Clark, sliding photographs on the table. "We find worrying evidence." The photos showed Isabella playing with Michael in the garden, helping him with homework, hugging him when he cried because of a nightmare. Moments of genuine affection transformed into evidence of inappropriate behavior. "She is clearly surpassing professional limits," continued Victoria Ashford, pointing to a photo where Isabella dried up Michael's tears. "An employee should not have this kind of emotional intimacy with the child." Richard felt nausea watching how they had distorted moments of maternal care in something sinister. "These are photos of Isabella taking care of my son. What is exactly the problem?" "The problem," said Charlotte Rivers with coldness calculated, "is that Michael is developing inappropriate emotional dependence. In our experience with elite families, it always ends in manipulation." Vivian Cross opened another dossier. "We researched her history. Domestic Philippines often use children as a bridge for social ascension. It is a well-documented cultural pattern. The racist generalization hovered in the air as a poison." Richard felt anger growing up, but before he could answer, Michael appeared at the door. "Dad, Bella said you wanted to see me. In fact, I didn't call you, son." The 5 women exchanged triumphant looks. "It saw," whispered Sophia. "She is making excuses to make the child stop our important conversations." Michael noticed the tension immediately. "Sorry, Dad. Bella said it was important, but perhaps she got it wrong." "It's okay, Michael. Go back to the garden." When the boy came out, Madison leaned forward. "Richard, you don't see? She's using Michael to spy us to know what we've talked about her." It was a lie. Isabella would never do that. But Richard began to question if he really knew the woman who took care of her son 6 months ago. That night he decided to test the accusations. During dinner he casually mentioned that he was traveling over the weekend for business meetings. "Isabella will be responsible for Michael alone," he said, observing the reactions. The 5 candidates exchanged alarmed glances. "Don't you find it risky?" Vivian asked. "A Philippine employee alone with an American child for whole days?" "She takes care of him every day, but always with you around," he countered Charlotte. "Supervision is fundamental with people this background." Later, Richard found Isabella organizing Michael's toys in the room. She looked smaller, more vulnerable under the weight of the accusations that hovered over her. "Isabella, can I ask a question?" "Of course, Mr. Thompson. The candidate said you asked Michael to interrupt me today. Is it true?" Isabella stopped getting the toys, her hands shaking slightly. "No, sir. Michael came running saying that the Lord wanted to see him. I said it might be better to check first." Richard studied his face. Or Isabella was a consummate liar, or 5 women were conspiring against her. His intuition shouted the second option, but the doubt had been planted. "Isabella, do you understand why some people can question their proximity to Michael?" "I understand, sir." His voice was almost a whisper. "In the Philippines, taking care of children is sacred. Maybe I brought a lot of this culture here." "It's not about culture, Isabella, it's about—" Richard stopped, realizing that she was repeating the candidate's poisonous words. Isabella raised her eyes, and Richard saw something that surprised him. It was not hurt or fear, but a fierce, carefully controlled determination. "Mr. Thompson, can I ask a question?" "Of course. Do you really believe I would hurt Michael?" The question cut straight to the heart of the question. Richard looked at that woman who had brought laughs back to her house, who had turned her traumatized son into a happy child again. "No," answered honestly. "I don't believe." Isabella nodded slowly. "So trust what you see, not what they say they should see." As she climbed the stairs to see if Michael was sleeping, Richard realized that she had just witnessed something rare, absolute courage, disguised as humility. Upstairs, Michael was waiting for Isabella in the hallway, still awake. "Bella, why don't those women like you?" Isabella knelt at him, choosing the words carefully. "Sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand, Mahalko. Are they afraid of you?" Michael seemed genuinely confused. "Not from me. They are afraid of the love you and I have, because they want you to love only people like them." Michael embraced Isabella tightly. "But I don't want to love bad people." In that hug, Isabella made a decision that would change everything. If they wanted a war, she would give them just that, but her way. What 5 privileged women could not understand was that they were attacking someone who had survived much worse things, that prejudice disguised as a label, and that each insult only fed a determination that would turn their apparent vulnerability into the greatest force they ever had against them. On Wednesday morning, Isabella Santos did something that none of the 5 candidates expected. She smiled. It was not a smile of submission or nervousness, but something different. The kind of smile that smart people show when they finally decide to stop defending themselves and start attacking. During the breakfast, while serving toast to the candidates, Isabella listened to each poisonous word with the attention of a detective collecting evidence. Sophia Wellington had spent the last 10 minutes explaining to Richard why people like Isabella should never have access to good family children. "Richard, you need to understand," Sophia continued, gesturing dramatically with her porcelain cup. "These people come from completely different cultures. They do not understand fundamental American values." "What specific values?" Richard asked, his patience clearly running out. Madison Clark said, "Discipline, for example. In the Philippines, they are very permissive with children. Michael needs rigid structure to become a leader." Isabella kept serving coffee, but Michael noticed that she had stopped breathing for a few seconds. Not hurt, but something that seemed intense concentration. "And education," added Victoria Ashford. "A cleaning lady simply is unaware to guide the intellectual development of a gifted child." It was at this moment that Isabella made her first strategic error. He dropped a spoon that made a metallic noise when he hit the marble floor. "It saw?" said Charlotte Rivers immediately. Nervousness. People without preparation always show themselves through these small signs. Richard watched Isabella bend down to get the spoon. For a second his eyes met, and he saw something that surprised him. There was no nervousness there. There was calculation. "Sorry," muttered Isabella, but her voice carried a stability that completely contradicted the evidence of the fallen spoon. Later that morning, while the candidates went out for their welfare activities, spa, personal trainer, luxury purchases, Isabella took her phone and made a call that would change everything. "Elena, it's me, Isabella. I need your help." Elena Martinez, a lawyer specializing in labor rights and one of the few people Isabella trusted completely, answered in the first touch. "Bella, by the tone of your voice, something serious is happening there. More serious than you think. I need you to come here this afternoon, and bring your voice recording. You'll need to document some things." Elena had met Isabella 3 years earlier, when she defended a case of racial discrimination in an Herezu, where Isabella worked as a nightly cleaning lady. What began as a professional relationship turned into genuine friendship when Elena found that Isabella was not just another prejudice victim. She was someone with impressive strategic intelligence. "Bella, are you collecting evidence?" "I'm collecting justice." At 2 in the afternoon, Elena arrived disguised as a representative of a home cleaning agency, carrying a folder and equipment that looked like cleaning products, but contained state-of-the-art recording technology. "Michael is at school," said Isabella quickly, "and Richard is in an important meeting until 5. It's our window." "Where are the candidates?" "All here preparing for an evaluation session they planned for when Richard returns. They will try to demoralize me definitely today." Elena discreetly installed 3 different microphones in the living room, all connected to her phone via professional application. "Bella, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? Once we start recording, there is no return." Isabella looked out the window, seeing the 5 women talking in the pool area, gesturing excitedly as they planned their final humiliation. "Elena, for 6 months I took care of that boy like my own son. I taught him to smile again after his mother died. And these women want to destroy me simply because they think people like me don't deserve true love. And Richard? Does he know what you're doing? Richard is starting to doubt me because of their lies. I need him to see who these women really are." At 3:30, the 5 candidates gathered in the living room, not knowing that each word would be forever registered. "Today is the day," announced Sophia Wellington. "Richard will choose one of us, and this Philippine will finally understand his place." "What is the exact plan?" Vivian Cross asked. Madison Clark opened a folder. "First, let's introduce to Richard a full dossier about inadequate behaviors that we observe from Isabella. Then let's give an ultimatum. Either she leaves or we lose interest in marrying us with him." "What if he resists?" questioned Victoria Ashford. "It won't resist," said Charlotte Rivers with cruelty. "Because let's say Isabella is manipulating Michael psychologically, creating harmful emotional dependence. Elena, hidden in the kitchen, controlled the recordings through the phone, capturing each word with crystalline quality. They already imagined," continued Sophia, "the scandal if they knew that an American billionaire allowed a Philippine cleaning lady to exert maternal influence on his heir. The laughs that followed were recorded with technical perfection." "And then?" Vivian asked. "Then," said Madison with a cruel smile, "let's make sure she never gets a respectable family job again. We have enough contacts to destroy any reference she has." At that moment, Michael returned from school early and entered the front door, listening to fragments of the conversation. "Bella?" He called him confused. The 5 women shut up immediately. "Michael, dear," said Sophia quickly, "your nanny is busy. Why won't you play in the garden?" "She's not my nanny," Michael replied surprisingly to an 8-year-old. "She is my friend, and you are being bad with her." "Michael," tried Madison, "you don't understand the complexities." "I understand," the boy interrupted. "You don't like Bella because she's not rich like you, but she's cooler than you altogether." The silence that followed was broken by Isabella's voice appearing at the living room door. "Michael, come here, please." Elena watched over the kitchen crack as Isabella crouched down to the boy's height, her hands shaking slightly, not of fear, but with controlled anger. "Mahal ko," she whispered in Tagalog. "Go to her room now. Adults need to solve some things." Michael looked straight at the 5 women. "When my daddy arrives, I'll tell him exactly what you said about Bella." After Michael went up, Sophia Wellington turned to Isabella with total contempt. "You trained this boy well to defend her, wasn't it? Typical manipulative behavior." Isabella finally raised her eyes, and Elena saw a transformation through her eyes. The humble and subservient woman had completely disappeared. "Ladies," said Isabella calmly, "in 15 minutes Richard will come home. I'm sure you will want to be prepared for the conversation we will have." The tone of your voice made all 5 exchange uncomfortable looks. There was something different, something they couldn't identify. "What are you, Lando?" Victoria asked nervously. Isabella smiled. The same enigmatic smile of the morning, but now loaded with something that made Elena's heart accelerate with admiration. "I'm talking about truth, justice, and what happens when smart people get tired of being underestimated by those who confuse privilege with superiority." While the words echoed through the room, Isabella Santos was no longer a Filipino cleaning lady being humiliated. She was a woman who had spent 3 days collecting enough ammunition for a war that these 5 women didn't even know they had already lost. At 5 in the afternoon, Richard Thompson crossed the door of his mansion to find a scene that would change his life forever. Isabella Santos was standing in the center of the living room, no longer like the submissive cleaning lady, but as a commander prepared for final battle. "Richard," she said calmly, "before ladies say anything, I would like you to hear something." The 5 candidates exchanged nervous glances. There was something different in the air, an energy they could not identify but that made their stomachs contract with anxiety. "Isabella, I think you better withdraw," said Sophia Wellington quickly. "We have important questions to argue with Richard." "Yes," Isabella smiled. "You have very important questions." Elena Martinez appeared from the kitchen at that time, carrying a lawyer folder and a tablet connected to professional speakers. "Richard," said Isabella, "I present Elena Martinez, my lawyer and civil rights specialist. Elena, can you start reproduction?" "With pleasure," said Elena, adjusting the volume. The first recording echoed through the room with crystalline clarity. Sophia Wellington's voice saying, "Domestic Philippines often use children as a bridge for social ascension. It is a well-documented cultural pattern." Richard was pale. "What is that?" "It's your candidates revealing who they really are when they think no one is recording," said Isabella. The second recording began. Madison Clark explaining in detail how they would guarantee Isabella never get a respectable family employment and had enough contacts to destroy any reference. "This is illegal," exploded Victoria Ashford, trying to get Elena's tablet. "Don't touch the equipment," said Elena coldly, showing her OAB wallet. "And yes, conspiracy for defamation is federal crime." The third recording was devastating, all 5 confessing that they planned to lie about Isabella manipulating Michael psychologically, admitting that it was pure manufacturing to destroy it. Richard was shaking with anger. Did you invent everything?" "That's not what it seems," tried Charlotte Rivers desperately. "So let me play the 4th recording," said Elena, "where you explain exactly how you plan to train Michael to reject inappropriate cultural influences." The recording reproduced Charlotte saying textually, "American children need to be protected from these third-world influences. It is a matter of racial preservation." The silence that followed was broken by steps on the stairs. Michael ran down. "Daddy, you arrived. I heard the bad women talking about Bella again." "Michael," said Richard in a controlled voice, "tell me exactly what you heard." "They said they were going to make Bella could never work again, and that they would tell you lies for you. They also said children like me shouldn't learn things from other countries." Sophia Wellington tried one last card. "Richard, will you believe the word of a manipulated child?" Isabella finally exploded. "Manipulated?" His voice echoed through the mansion. "Elena, show him the full dossier." Elena opened the folder, revealing organized documents methodically. "Mr. Thompson, here are Isabella's real references. Harvard Business School, graduate magna cum laude, MIT, Master in Engineering. 3 years as a consultant at McKinsey & Company before moving to the United States. Richard almost fell from his chair. What? That's not all, he continued. Elena, Isabella Santos is not just a cleaning lady. She is heir to one of the largest technology corporations of the Philippines. Estimated equity estimated at $50 million. The 5 candidates were in absolute shock. Impossible, murmured Vivian Cross. Isabella finally allowed herself to smile completely. I came to the United States after my mother's death, seeking peace and simplicity. Working as a cleaning lady was anonymous to process my mourning. I never hoped to find a family to love me for whom I am, not for what I have. Richard was processing the information. You are multimillionaire, yes. Graduated in the best universities in the world, yes. And in love with your child and Poe are you too, Elena continued. And as for the 5 ladies present here, we have enough evidence to process them for racial discrimination, conspiracy, defamation, and attempt to interference with employment contracts. You have tried to destroy someone who is not only more qualified than you all together, said Isabella, but who also has more financial resources to defend himself. Madison Clark was hyperventilating. We didn't know. If we knew who you were. Exactly the problem, cut Isabella. You treated me like garbage because you believed I had no power to defend me, but a person's character reveals itself exactly when he thinks there will be no consequences. Elena showed her cell phone. The recordings have already been sent to 3 different newspapers and 2 social networks specialized in exposing discrimination. In 1 hour, the whole country will know exactly who you are, Sophia Wellington tried to explain. Please, this will ruin our lives. How did you try to ruin mine? Isabella showed no pity. The difference is that I never did anything to deserve. You made conscious choices of being cruel. Richard approached Isabella. Why didn't you tell me who it was? Because I wanted to make sure you loved me for myself, not for my bank account. And I wanted Michael to learn to value people for character, not for social position. And we failed the test, said Richard sadly. You didn't fail. You questioned, but you didn't condemn me. You decided to investigate instead of just believing in accusations. It shows integrity. Elena interrupted. Ladies, I suggest you leave this property immediately. Criminal proceedings will be filed tomorrow morning. The 5 women came out in absolute disgrace, knowing that in a few hours they would be exposed nationally as cruel discriminating who attacked an innocent woman for pure racial prejudice. Michael ran to hug Isabella. Bella, are you really rich? Yes, Mahalko. But what matters is that we are rich in love. Richard kissed her right there in front of Elena and Michael. Isabella Santos, would you teach me to be a better man? It started, she replied. While the 5 former candidates drove away in total humiliation, Isabella realized that she had found something more valuable than all her money, a family that loved her unconditionally, and the satisfaction of proving that the true class has nothing to do with social origin, but with dignity, intelligence, and character strength. The sweeter revenge was not to destroy their enemies but to build something beautiful with those who really mattered, while they picked up the consequences of their own wickedness. Block 5, Satisfactory Resolution, plus Powerful Moral Lesson. 6 months later, the Thompson mansion breathed a completely different energy, no longer the heavy air of prejudice and manipulation, but the genuine lightness of a family that had learned the true meaning of human value. Isabella Santos Thompson adjusted the pink diamond engagement ring that Richard had chosen personally, not for the exorbitant price, but because she remembered the sunshine of the Philippines she loved so much. The marriage would be in 2 weeks, an intimate ceremony that would celebrate love built on mutual respect, not about social appearances. Mama Bella, Michael ran down the stairs using the title he had chosen on his own. Did you see the news today? Isabella smiled, taking the tablet that the boy extended anxiously. The main headline showed Sophia Wellington being escorted by security guards out of an elegant office in Manhattan, her career as an image consultant for rich families having completely collapsed after the recordings viralize. In recent months, the fate of the 5 former candidates had unfolded as a real-time moral lesson. Madison Clark lost his position on the board of 3 charity organizations after his speech about racial preservation, viral at TikTok. Victoria Ashford saw her luxury boutique closing after massive boycott, her own Philippine employees publicly resigning with devastating testimonials. Charlotte Rivers faced lawsuits for discrimination in at least 4 states, her social label consultancy bankrupt, while clients canceled mass contracts. Vivian Cross had moved to a small town inside, his professional reputation so destroyed that he could not even get a job as a secretary. Are they still being cruel? Michael asked, his genuine concern touching Isabella's heart. No, Mahalko. They learned what actions have consequences. and we learned something even more important. Richard appeared in the room holding documents that made Isabella smile. The foundation's papers were ready, he announced, kissing his forehead. Fund Santos Thompson Foundation for Educational Equality can start to work officially. With his own money and the connections of Richard, Isabella had created an organization that offered full scholarships for immigrant children, especially Philippines and other Asians, who dreamed of elite education but faced financial and cultural barriers. How many children are we going to help this year? Michael asked, always curious about the projects of the future stepmother. 200 in the first year, said Isabella, and each of them will know that their value is not measured by the parent's bank account, but the size of their dreams and determination. At that moment, Isabella's phone rang. It was Sophia Wellington, her broken and unrecognizable voice. Isabella, I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I need to apologize. I lost everything. Work, friends, reputation, but worst of all is knowing I deserved it. Isabella took a deep breath. Sophia, I'm sorry for what you went through, but that was not personal revenge. It was a consequence of choices you made. You were right about everything. If I could ever forgive me, I would like to contribute to your foundation. Maybe you can help others not to make the same terrible mistakes I made. Genuine growth deserves a second chance, said Isabella, but it will be a long process and you will have to prove it with actions. After the call is over, Michael asked, Bella, why are you going to help a person who was bad with you? Isabella knelt at the boy's height. Because, Mahalko, the real victory is not to destroy our enemies. It is to show them a better way and give the chance to choose to follow him. That Sunday, while the family was preparing for a picnic in the garden of the mansion, Isabella reflected on the extraordinary journey she had lived. She had come to that home like a Philippine cleaning lady seeking peace after her mother's loss, but found something more valuable than all her money, a family that loved her unconditionally. Richard, she said as she spread the picnic towel, do you regret something? To have been so long to see who you really were, he answered without hesitation. Michael appeared running with a new kite. Mama Bella, can you teach me how to prancing? My father doesn't know how to do it right. Isabella laughed, realizing that this was the life she had sought without knowing. Not revenge against those who discriminated against her, but the construction of something beautiful with whom she valued her. 6 months after the confrontation that changed everything, Isabella Santos had proved that the best response to prejudice is not hatred, but excellence. The 5 women who tried to humiliate her have found that when you attack someone for its origin, it is not revealing the victim's inferiority. He is exposing the poverty of character, himself. And Michael has learned the most valuable lesson of all, that the value of a person is never measured by what he has, but for the love he is able to give and receive. If this story of overcoming injustice has touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because life always offers choices. We can use our wounds to hurt others, or turn them into wisdom to heal the world, one person at a time.